Now here's a fun one I've never heard of before. Turrican is a side-scrolling action game that features a dude in a cyborg suit blasting at evil enemies. Actually, to be more specific, they're machines. No, seriously, the enemy force is called the Evil Machine. This evil machine goes through and pretty much takes over a bunch of planets. Your hero is named Bren McGuire, which seems like a pretty heroic name. In any case, he dons his Turrican suit and he sets out to destroy anything that contains nuts or bolts. Now, many of your enemies look like bots, and the environments really feel like metallic zones, which are both pluses in a game where you're supposedly destroying a faction of evil machinery, but to me, the first thing I noticed in this game was the music. It sounds unlike anything I've ever heard in the Genesis. I've already mentioned in, I think, both my Road Rash 3 and Crusader of Senti reviews, that the Genesis isn't really known for memorable soundtracks, but even those games felt hindered by the capabilities of the console. Turrican sheds that assumption that Genesis music can't touch SNES quality music. I'd say there's possibly only one song in the game I didn't care for, but I didn't really like that entire stage, which I'll get into in a little while. In any case, Turrican opens up with an innocent sounding beginning, then kicks it up a notch with an incredibly catchy tune that will stick in your head for days. The cool thing is that after every section, the tune switches up a bit, retaining the same theme but being a different song altogether. For example, the third zone in the first level contains music that starts off like you're fighting a boss, but then changes tempo and goes for a more dramatic feel. I think the biggest draw to it is that the music just sounds so clear, which is pretty much unheard of for Genesis. All of the music in Turrican shares the same theme. It's a heavy beat. It takes the heavy bass sounds of the Genesis and really enhances it to produce what I consider to be some of the best music I've ever heard in a video game. And in my book, that's a hell of an accomplishment. I've already said that the graphics look like they play the part of the tech-heavy world, so let me talk more about that. Along with the music, the graphics are another place where this game really shines. Everything is just so detailed. The first zone shows what looks to be some sort of factory, but when you complete that, you enter a place that looks like a sewer of sorts. Another thing about this game? Transitions are logical. This isn't a game where you wonder how you got from one place to another. Instead, Turrican shows you how Bren travels from the factory to the sewer. In any case, the level of detail is really shown. Backgrounds are drawn extremely well and don't look entirely repetitive. Each of the stages really made my jaw drop just by seeing them. Probably my favorite is the air stage, but that section really doesn't last for longer than a minute. After the air segment, you find yourself in a massive junkyard. Overall, Turrican's visuals, they do not disappoint. Okay, so the visuals and sounds are excellent, and the story is decent, but what about the actual gameplay? Well, just like the rest of the game, Turrican doesn't disappoint. It's kind of similar to a game like Contra, where you just maneuver through the stages, collecting power-ups to blast things. Every once in a while, you'll have to fight a mini-boss, all of which are simple once you get the patterns down. Most of the bosses don't pose too much of a threat either. However, it's the main levels that will get you. There's often just so many enemies on the screen that you'll need to be good on your reflexes to destroy them all without taking damage. You get 3 weapons to assist you with this, and each are color-coded for simplicity. The red orb enhances your spread gun. Although not nearly as devastating as, say, Contra's, it can be vital to destroy multiple weak enemies. The next weapon is the rebound shot. Not as cool as one would think, it's just a single shot fired straight ahead, but another 2 shots fired in each direction vertically. These vertical shots will travel along walls until they hit an enemy or obstruction. Although helpful in certain parts of the game, and especially the 3rd stage boss, it doesn't really seem to come in handy very often. Granted, the shots are extremely powerful, but they're also slow. The final weapon available is the plasma shot. This fires a huge ball of green gunk that hits hard, but only fires straight ahead, giving it a slight disadvantage. While not as powerful as the rebound shot, it's still stronger than the spread and faster than the rebound. Finally, you can also chance to find a homing missile, which fires automatically and immediately tracks onto the nearest enemy. Unlike the other 3 weapons that just decrease in level when you die, you'll completely discard the homing missile when your suit blows up. My biggest complaint with the weapons is that you can't direct your direction of fire with them. Granted, it's not always necessary, but there were a few parts of the game where I had the plasma shot, and really wished I could fire diagonally. In addition to the weapons, you also get a handy grappling hook that you can use. In order to use it, you hold down A, and then you can control where you want to latch onto by directing Bren's arm. Once you let go of A, the hook is used, latching onto anything within range. It's a pretty cool feature, it's done pretty well, but the game doesn't seem to utilize it enough. There's a few other things you can collect too. Gems are floating all over the stage and exist only for bonus points when you clear the stage. Health power-ups come in the forms of parts and do the obvious. Shields are rare but make you completely invulnerable for a few seconds. Finally, there's plenty of extra lives floating around. The game will actually tell you how many extra lives and gems you missed after defeating a boss, so if you're going towards a 100% completion for some reason, the game will tell you if you're achieving that, or if you need to look harder next time. So now that I have the basics down, let me explain the one stage that feels out of place, the 4th level. It looks to be taking place in some sort of alien hive, but given that you're supposed to be fighting machines, this just feels odd. In addition to this, the music is just kind of boring, which is a huge disappointment. The graphics are neat, but they're also kind of dull at the same time. The enemies are also more unforgiving, so you'll be bombarded by them frequently. There's also little head crab-like creatures that will suck the life out of you, unless you keep mashing left and right to shake it off. Otherwise you're going to see your health just drain to zero. Finally, the stage drags on, breaking up in the middle only by a small train segment where you're forced to jump between cars. There's also a point where you have to jump on small alien platforms across massive gaps between the train cars. But after this stage you get to level 5, which is the final one, which brings the Awesomest back to Mega Turrican. I don't know what happened here, but in my opinion, level 4 should have been cut for something a bit more relevant. Now, I've mentioned that the game does let you know that there's extra lives you missed, but the nice thing is that the game isn't stingy with the lives. You do get 3 continues, but they don't really take long to burn through if you're not careful. And stage 4 forces you to start way back at the beginning, so it's vital to claim as many lives as possible. The awesome part, for which I am totally commending Data East for doing, is allowing you to go double digits in your lives. No shit, you can actually get more than 9 lives. That placeholder 0 isn't just a placeholder. It's hiding other numbers! I know, it's freaking shocking! In a game where you'll probably need the abundance of extra lives, it's a great feeling to know that the game doesn't cap you at 9. Perhaps the hardest part of the game is the final boss. After fighting the other 4, I wasn't expecting much of a challenge, but this bastard's rough. He's got several forms, and I'd say this first is a more difficult one. He appears behind a metal door and occasionally opens it to expose himself to damage. The problem is that when opening the door, he's also able to attack you. The great circle projectile he throws at you seems to be almost nearly impossible to dodge. After this, you fight a huge face of the evil machine, which only has 2 attacks, both of which aren't very difficult to avoid. The third form is the last, and it's a human-like form of the head machine. Again, only 2 attacks here. One is a lightning-fast green shot, and the other is a bounding metal ball. If you use the bombs that you have, it'll die quickly and let you see the mediocre ending. I did notice 2 glitches in the game, although both are the same thing. There was a point in stage 3 where I died by getting knocked off one of the flying platforms. The problem is that the game didn't start me back on a solid object, so I kept spawning in the air, falling to my doom. This drained all of my lives in a matter of seconds. The same thing happened on the train car. It sucks to have so many lives just to see them get wasted so quickly. Other than that glitch, Mega Turrican is extremely fun, and is easily one of the best games on the Genesis. It really pushes the limits of what the console is capable of, and proves that it can indeed compete with SNES games. I've had a lot of fun playing it, and I definitely recommend you give it a shot. You won't be disappointed. Final score? 9 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.